Three, two, one.
Thunderbirds are go!
Fuck you. Three, two, one. Hey everybody, and welcome back to RollDX presents Star Wars: The D6 Campaign, Young Jedi Knights.
That was needlessly over-exaggerated there, Duhad.
Just a little bit. Anyway, I'm Duhad. This is Curl the Frog.
Yep.
I'm Morath.
Yeah. He just said his own name, so, fuck it, I'm not going to introduce him.
That sounds
somewhat mean.
So when last we left our protagonists, what the hell happened? Right, so we had gone to the Jedi Academy, we had introduced our characters, we had introduced the NPCs, we introduced the setting, we introduced the main supporting characters, we introduced the main conflict, and we were actually about ready to get into the actual story.
Yeah, we also hit the errant adventure. Also, you're sounding a whole hell of a lot like Rumthorpe there.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, anyway. So I think we were just about to hit Dathomir, make planetfall and such, on your new ship that you had gotten your hands on. Though there was one thing that happened before that. There was a little bit of an argument as to the name of the ship.
Oh God, you're right. In case
like a lost basket.
In case we hadn't actually gone over that before, there were a number of different name ideas we'd actually played around with before settling on what we eventually called it, which I won't reveal quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some ideas about what the hell we have. There was the Lost Basket.
Yes.
Which was Midor.
Yep.
And though that was not the name of the ship, he did paint it on the side of the ship in a somewhat misguided attempt to, have it officially named that.
Not to mention he actually painted a little basket on the door for the landing gear.
He did it that.
Yeah.
God damn that stupid furnace. Alright, you guys explain the other names. I'm going to close the door.
Let's see, what were the other names that were tossed about?
I remember we got away with Jade Falcon because I am a sneaky bugger and you and I both love Battletech.
Fan. Yeah. Yeah. That was the only way that you were going to actually make that one happen. But, so the ship was originally named the Slash Rat, which everyone thought was absolutely and totally unacceptable for a Jedi ship. And I can't exactly blame them. But yeah. So, yeah, there was the Lost Basket, there was the Jade Falcon. Were there any other ones that were tossed around?
Keg Runner, I think, was one.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me about that one, because that was, of course, the one that Washin was championing.
Actually, no, it wasn't. Like, he was for a little while, but then, he was like, I'm not sure if I like it. And there was, someone else, I forget who it was, but someone else was like, no, yeah, because whatever, it's your ship, fuck it.
I think that might have been Maine's player who kept on pushing for that.
Right, yeah, because eventually he was just like, no, this is actually a really good idea. And I was like, no, that actually sounds kind of dumb. And it's super uncomfortable it would be super uncomfortable for the character to actually have his name on the ship. And he's like, no, but this is great. It's it's like your ship, so it's you got the name. And to be fair, this makes a lot of sense if it was Maine's character, because Maine's character was also the type of guy who will name everything. Like, if he's playing a video game and he has a gun he particularly likes, he will nickname the video game gun.
Yeah, he would.
He's all about personalizing. So, him latching onto that idea actually sounds a lot like him, so it probably was him.
Yeah. Actually, I seem to remember that this was another instance where Daddy's credit card got pulled out because of the fact that it took money to go ahead and change the ship's name.
Right.
I think you guys actually had to get your hands on a new IFF.
Yeah. I actually do remember the one thing that was we actually did call it the Jade Falcon eventually, and the funny thing about it was that I think I actually came up with the name, and the funny thing was, I thought the name, I was like, oh my god, this name's so great, I'm gonna say it, it's just gonna stun everyone. I'm just gonna be like, it's perfect. And I'm like, I got it. Jade Falcon, and like everyone was just like, nah, we can do better.
I was behind you on that one because of the BattleTech reference.
Yeah, see, that was a mistake. I didn't actually know anything about the BattleTech reference. I came up with that name because I was like, Falcon, Millennium Falcon, Jade Skywalker is our master. Jade Falcon. And then you hopped on because I unintentionally made a reference to something else, which you were behind, and everyone else was just like, no, that name's stupid. Let's not use that name.
And it was, in fact, the one that it actually ended up getting named because of the fact that, of course, Daddy's credit card was paying for the new IFF.
Right. So, thank God for a cool.
Which was actually, if I remember it correctly, the reason why the Lost Basket got painted onto the ship, because that was Medora's protest.
Yeah. He really didn't like the Jade Falcon idea. Like, I remember he actually, like, did not like that idea.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else was sort of like, no, we can do better, but he was just like, that name's dumb.
To be fair, it kind of was.
It's a totally dumb name. It's a great dumb name.
And the thing is, as well, is, you know, it's the kind of dumb name that you get in canon, because of the fact that Mara Jade actually did essentially name her ships, like, the Jade whatever. There was the Jade Fire, and the Jade Saber, and I think the Jade Shadow.
Makes sense.
Now, granted, this wasn't actually her ship specifically, but close enough.
Yeah. At any rate...
Yeah.
Let's not
we have a ship.
Like, the entire session talking about the ship. So.
Oh, the ship. It deserves a whole session of talking about it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
No, dude, the things that ship went through, we will end up spending about.
It was our mystery machine. It
yeah.
Is an iconic part of the campaign, but it's not important yet.
Not so much, no. Anyway, so we have the Jade Falcon. It's even been renamed. Daddy's credit card got used twice now. You know, once to buy from the Hells Angels, essentially. The other time to rename the ship that the Hells Angels gave them. But yeah. So, then, you know, it come out of hyperspace, and it's above the planet Dathomir, which I think we've already pretty much gone over. Warrior witches... lots and lots of Force sensitives there, and the bad guys are recruiting, and essentially saying equal gender politics for all. Well, also, you know, teaching dark side. Yay.
Something dark side.
Yes, apparently equality between the sexes is a dark-sided action. No, I really don't think that. Oh, please, God, no.
God damn you, Reddit.
Yeah, I know, right? Cancel RollDX. Now, of course, the thing being that, once again, Dathomir is the matriarchal society because of the fact that you have female Force sensitives far more than you have male Force sensitives.
Yeah.
Right.
But also Rancors that they ride because awesomeness.
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask a canon question here?
Yeah, sure.
Where did the Iridonians on Dathomir come from?
They didn't originally. The Iridonians were from Iridonia. Putting them on Dathomir was something that came much later, vis-a-vis the Clone Wars TV show, just to make the connection between Asajj Ventress being, you know, from Dathomir, and also Darth Maul being from Dathomir. Spoilers. Frankly, that really never came up before. They just did that for the TV show. It's essentially one of those things that is technically now canon, because the Clone Wars TV show is higher canon, but what you gonna do? It doesn't really much fit with the previously established stuff.
Okay, so that is a Clone Wars creation. I was just making sure.
Yeah, no, the Iridonians were never mentioned beforehand. Essentially what happened was the Dathomiri witches were there, and we don't know exactly how they got there, but they were there. Wait. No, that's right. Dathomir was a wild planet for most of its history, and then the Chunthor, I believe the name of the ship was, which was essentially like a flying Jedi Academy, crashed there, and that's the reason why you have so many Force sensitives on the planet, because, of course, they bred with each other, and they turned into the warrior witches and such. And at some point, Yoda actually showed up there, found the Chunthor, and talked with them, and some of them became part of the Jedi Order. Yeah, as you do. But they essentially were their own planet. Later on, during the Empire put a small base on the planet and such. There's also some stuff with the Rakatan Infinite Empire, but I'll be perfectly honest, I'm a little weak on my Old Republic canon, so I really couldn't speak to that too much. But I think there's like a hyperspace gate or something like that. Think the Stargate from the Stargate TV show, except larger. And of course, because Rancors are, suitably awesome, there was a lot of kind of poaching of them from the planet.
Aren't there Force-sensitive ones?
Rancors, kind of, sorta. I think that only showed up in West End Games material, which is thoroughly dubious canon, but, what you gonna do? On the other hand, the Rancors on Dathomir tend to be seen as smarter and more able to communicate with the Force Sensitives who ride them, so there might be something going on there. Also, I'm pretty sure that the Rancors went ahead and evolved out of the Blue Plains people, which are like a semi-sentient race that's on the planet, or some such like that. It's been a while since I've read Courtship of Princess Leia, so I might be just, speaking straight out of my ass.
Isn't that kind of what we do here?
Well, yes, but normally there's at least a little bit more processing in between ass and screen.
Right. So,
or speakers,
anyway,
rather.
On the campaign that people are actually interested in.
Hey, blame Morath. He asked me a canon question. You know how that happens. Anyway.
So anyway, we were heading to this planet that a bunch of stuff involved around. That was important because what we were doing was...
Yeah, you were cleaning up the new segment of the Night Sisters, which was actually, the Second Imperium, or less the Second Imperium and more this resurgent Imperium. They called themselves the Second Imperium. That was recruiting on planet in what I seem to remember was called the Great River Clan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure on that. And the friendly clan on planet was where Tenel Ka's mother was originally from, and I think that was the Great Mountain Clan, or something along those lines. Anyway, so you flew down there and, talked to them and, tried to help out and that sort of thing. And you didn't have any females in the party, did you?
No, we didn't.
Even Temno's character, who was no longer with us, was male.
Yes. So, like I said, it's a matriarchal planet. So, what started happening is, I also remember this happened to Maine, specifically, is a number of the younger witches on the planet decided that, Force-sensitive males, we want a hubby. Because, of course, a Force-sensitive male is considered to be, the absolute best catch that you can possibly get.
Breeding stock.
Yeah, pretty much. No, you were not going to have things better for you because you were Force sensitive and male. You were going to do your husbandly duties, and that was about it. And that also included a lot of manual labor. But there was a little bit of confusion there for a while, because I seem to remember Maine actually playing up and enjoying the intention somewhat. As did, I think Brian's player did that as well.
Yeah.
Because I seem to remember that part of Brian's backstory is he had kind of been given the whole freak treatment for being a Force sensitive, rather than this is a wonderful, happy thing.
Yeah, the more you kind of go into it, the more Brian tends to sound like Magneto.
A little bit, yeah.
Like he's a super powered, Force sensitive dude who hates.
Hey, let's not beat around the bush. That was one of the tragedies of the early thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways, but it was really a tragedy. Anyway, so the other thing which happened was you were introduced to the other important character.
The final of the main PC characters that we
Rosa Linry, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Probably. I just remember him as Rosa, but...
Yeah. And, of course, the thing with Rosa was he was actually Force-sensitive, and he was a he. And he was native from the planet, which made him really special. He was also blind.
Yep.
And essentially what he was is he wasn't a Miralukan, which is a blind near human that sees with the Force, but that was his thing. He was a human that had essentially the Miralukan setup. Though his, I honestly think, was, considering what it was in the future, it became much, much better. He could see, 360 degrees, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
His vision was the Force.
Yeah, a little background for this character as well. Not in character, but as a player. Because I think this is kind of important to understanding Rosa and what would end up happening with him over the rest of the campaign. Rosa was played by a guy who I actually introduced to the party. And he was someone who I had introduced to the party because he was in a game that I had played in, like a very short run game that I played in at the college before joining the big group. The GM of that game never joined the group, though Brian's player was actually a player in it near the end of that game.
Okay.
So Rosa's character, like me, knew Brian's player probably better than just about anyone else in the party right off the bat. But unlike me, the guy who played Rosa tended not to play characters who were, kind of more... He had a thing where he'd like to play non-combatants as much as I do, but instead of playing non-combatants whose shtick is being more about, like, being kind of survivally and trying not to die and doing kind of useless things, his thing was he'd find something really interesting and then focus that to the exclusion of basically everything else, like including things that would be actually considered useful. So when DeFrog here says he was playing a blind kid, the thing to take away from this is not, he was playing a blind kid with like Force sensitive vision so you get supervision. He was playing a blind kid with the Force vision because DeFrog wouldn't let him play a blind kid straight up. Because he would do that.
Yeah.
The game we'd played in before was a game where, like, it was a D&D adventure where he was a wizard who would put all of his abilities, like all of his spells and stuff, into essentially being an artificer. Like, he made magical devices, none of which were lethal. And his only traveling companion was my character, who was a thief who had like trained in all combat abilities for like breaking and entering abilities and stuff. This is a guy who liked to play with limitations and then just have fun with those limitations.
What's more about this player is he was an absolute joy to GM for, because he never saw a problem with working with the GM.
Yeah.
If the GM needed someone to, kind of work, to kind of kick off the plot and such, or any of that kind of stuff, he'd go, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he would also go ahead and have fun with that as well.
Yeah. You tell him you need to get kidnapped for the story to progress. He didn't go, oh, well, I want some extra XP, or, oh, that's kind of boring, I don't want to do that, I'm playing a hero. He'd say, awesome. Yeah, you throw me in jail. Awesome. Like, we'll have some fun with this. Can I have some interaction with, like, the jailer or something?
And you would do it because it would be so much fun.
Yeah, and he'd just roll with it. So, like, the reason he ended up becoming such a, like, big part, like, on par with the other two main characters who are actually in this call is just, in large part, because he'd go with anything and absolutely just kill it.
Yeah.
So just keep this in mind as we go ahead, that, like, this was not a minimaxer. The things that he did were always, like, not for some sinister plan later down the line. They were because he liked just doing anything.
Yeah. For example, he built, a pretty standard, a pretty standard spread for, a person who would have to, grow up in a low-tech environment and would be, of course, higher on the physical stats and less on the mental stats, because of the fact that, that's just how things were. He wasn't going to be exposed to high technology. He sunk all the skill points that he had into, low-tech muscle-powered weapons. Like, he was actually really, really good with a spear, which is a almost entirely worthless weapon once you get out into the galaxy at large. And he, went, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to, say, oh, he had his hands on a blaster rifle or anything like that. No, he had no skills in anything that he would not have learned on what was essentially a Stone Age planet. Maybe Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes some of the stuff that he did later on even more interesting. Anyway, so when I told him I kind of need, at the moment, we can only really bring you in as a Dathomiri character, because that's where we are. He went, cool, what's up with that place? I told him, he goes, okay, I'm building this character. And then I said, the other thing is, you've got to be a Force sensitive, because, that's what the party is. And he goes, okay, cool. And then I go, and if at all possible, I want you to run away to this other place so that they can follow you, and essentially give them a time limit to go ahead and not piss off the clan that's hosting them, because, Force-sensitive male. And he goes, oh yeah, I could totally do that. And I was like, okay, fine. And I'm figuring, because, I'm used to, working with a PC and having them do something, that, they'll go off, see the error of their ways, and then turn right back around, very easily. He doesn't do that, at all.
No.
When I said, okay, so you're a Force-sensitive male, you have an arranged marriage that's gonna happen, and I want you to go ahead and run away, he goes, okay, cool, I'm gonna do that. And he actually makes that the starting point for his character. He also asks me if he can be younger than the rest of the party. And I go, yeah, sure, why not? So I think he's 2 years younger than the youngest other person in the party. Which I think puts him at the age of 13 at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, he was a little kid.
Which was also brilliant. Because of the fact that, for those of you who don't remember back, there is a large difference in 2 years gap during that time period. You really do change a lot of your mind, the way that you look at the world, and all that sort of stuff. So he almost thought in an alien way to the rest of the party, who were starting to become adults, whereas he was, still very much a kid.
Yeah.
So what happens is...
And he played that well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really well. Anyway, so what happens is, they're on planet for about a day, they have their whole little things, they're, planning and saying, okay, so how are we going to do this and everything? And then Rosa runs off. And the clan goes ahead and says, okay, can you get him back, because we really can't let them have him. And, his fiancé is all sorts of worried, because she really did love the other guy, and he wanted that to be a thing. But, he had run off because freedom. Yeah. So, I think it was... That's right. It was Brian's character, if I'm remembering correctly, who actually confronted him as he was running away. And, Brian's character starts making the standard Star Wars arguments of, you need to come back, those guys are the bad guys and everything. God help us, Rosa's player character spews out exactly the whole, I want to be free, they're not letting me be free, you're an idiot if you think I'm coming back with you, I don't care about this dark side, light side bullshit, and essentially just books it past him because he's much better physically. And he also has the good sense to, essentially jab him in the gut as he goes past, so he can't get the concentration for his force powers to grab him. And boom, he's out in the night, and because he's from this world, and used to moving around at night and hunting, because as a force-sensitive male, he's valuable that way, he's able to just get straight away from Brian's character, who is, after all, a mechanic who's lived in a city his entire life.
Yeah.
So, Brian's character comes back to the party and goes, yeah, he kind of got away from me, guys. And suddenly, all the plans that they were putting together were out the window. And I seem to remember that you guys decided, well, shit, we're going to go talk to Mara Jade about this.
From what I remember, Washin decided to go on an expedition to find him.
Yeah,
with Midor and a bunch of other people.
No,
right.
No, actually, first, you decided you were going to call Mara Jade, because you were always the first person to call for Mara Jade. Washin began his transformation from toady to, weird spiritualist by basically deciding that he was just going to, he was going to try out this whole letting the Force guide him thing, and then just took off in the middle of the night. Going the Force is telling me I should head out in the woods. Okay. And just
leaves. For the record, he just turns to me and goes, so what does the Force say I should do? And I go, make your sense roll. And he makes a sense roll, and it's a pretty good one. And I go, follow. He follows.
So I was follow.
Yeah.
and the rest of the players are like, wait, don't split the party. You tell someone else that you're leaving. I'm like, Force didn't tell me to tell you guys. Force told me to follow.
So a bunch of the
now
party
Rosa's
starts running
gone.
off after him.
Washington's run off into the forest. Cool's making a call to the temple.
Not to the temple.
Mara Jade was on planet
with you guys.
Right, she was on planet, but he's calling the boss.
Right. So while you're running off, and part of the party's running off after you, he's making this comlink call to Mara Jade. What he doesn't know at the time is that she's currently essentially in council with the clan's elders. And when they hear that this shit is going down because he's being, somewhat loud and, it's like, our objective is just run off, what should we do? They hear it, because, Force sensitives themselves, and they go, war party. Time for a war party.
I started a war. Anyway.
Loose lips, sink ships. And anyway, then he turns around, notices that just about everyone is gone, and I believe that's when you first said it.
Yeah. It wasn't the first time I said that. That was the first time. Well, actually, the first time I said it was actually in a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But the time that I said the line, that is actually on the character sheet.
Yes.
But I there was a variation that was spewed at this point.
Oh, that's right. Quick little thing about the D6 rules is one of the things that you're supposed to put on your character sheet is like a little quote for the character, something that embodies them. And the idea is that if you can use it naturally, mind you, in your role playing, that you get some extra XP points. It's like 1 extra CP per use of it, and you can only use it the one time. So, like for example, I think Han Solo's is supposed to be, "I've got a bad feeling about this."
Yeah.
Which I still think Never Tell Me the Odds would probably be more appropriate, but...
Yeah, but that's not what they wrote it in as. I think, for like Obi-Wan, it would be "May the Force be with you."
Yeah.
But
Keeping in
yeah,
mind
the
that,
idea
this
is
was
giving
before
yourself a
the prequels.
catchphrase to, kind of peg your character by.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to dig out your old sheets again sometime.
At some point, yeah.
Just to go over these with people. Anyway, so Rosa is making much better time than the rest of the party, because he actually knows where the hell he's going. And they're trying to follow him. Duhad's character, Washington's just kind of stumbling through the dark, because, he's a spacer kid. What's this planet shit that he's on?
Yeah. Like the exact opposite conditions that he's used to.
I think at that point, Midor caught up with you, and he started tracking because he was much more used to it.
Yeah,
He was also
Though he was originally from a desert world, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah.
Though I do remember this was actually another point where, like, fractures began in earnest to form in the party, because at this point, I remember Brian was, like, really, like, before a Cool, who famously became the don't split the party guy, Brian was probably the most experienced role player in the group, like in like the traditional D&D, like learning the rules of like what you do and do not do in a role playing game style thing. So
I would argue that Maine's character was also pretty experienced, but yeah.
True, but
Yeah.
okay, I guess he probably was as well. But like Brian's character, like he was a really like hardcore old school role player who kind of understood the rules and believed in those rules. So when he went out, like to this point, there was no real enmity between any of the characters. But at this point, he was like, you know what? You broke the don't split the party rule. We're gonna go over there and we're gonna have a talk. And then Midor catches up first, and he like out of character, he turns to Midor's player and is like, okay, now you hold him still, and we're gonna have a talk. And Midor's character, goes like, okay, actually, I'm going to do this in character. Turns to me in character and says, so you want me to help you track?
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was great.
and Brian's character is just like, you motherfucker.
Because, of course, the thing was, it was completely in character for Midor. Because Midor was a helpful, gentle, kind soul who looked like a violent brute.
Yeah.
And what's more, he actually kind of bought into the whole Force thing, much like Washington was starting to.
Yeah. So it was a funny bit, but like this is where things started like while we didn't know it yet, this is where like lines in the sand began to be drawn, which will become more and more pronounced as the story continues.
Yes. So yeah, so the two of you are starting tracking, and I think that essentially Brian, Maine, and Akul become the same party, and they're chasing as well. And I'm having them roll to, see how people are going. And, of course, Rosa is outdistancing everyone. And the fact that Mador is doing the tracking and such speeds up you guys, but you're still moving slowly because tracking is just not as fast. And I think it was at this point that Brian said, well, can I use the Force to go ahead and get on their trail and let us keep moving at a pretty good clip? And I went, yeah, that makes sense. They're Force sensitives. They're kind of bright in the Force as far as it goes, so you should be able to do that. And that's kind of how the party got back together.
Yeah.
And Brian was more than a little annoyed.
Yeah. Like,
especially because I was just saying, you're rolling this and we're finding out how it goes. It was just the rolls that made it happen the way it was. As far as I was concerned, the party being split was fine by me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it wasn't a bad thing, but it was...
Yeah, so Rosa's player character actually makes it to the Great Valley Clan or the Great River Clan, one of the two of those. Far before you guys, it's still essentially night when he does, and he, essentially goes, I want to join your group, I want to get out and see the universe, because that was actually another big thing with his character. He really did want to get out, see the universe. I think one of his initial kind of quotes was, the star, I'd love to see the stars look beautiful tonight, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, he was very unhappy about being on planet. It's not that he didn't, kind of understand his place in Dathomiri culture and didn't even accept it a little bit. And he actually did, in his own, 12-year-old way, love his fiancée. It's just that he wanted to see the universe. And this was the only way that he could see that it was going to happen.
Yeah. A lot of the motivation of the character it's a little bit hard to kind of get if you're just sort of hearing it like this, because the thing that you really have to kind of keep in mind here is that it wasn't something where he was playing this guy who was like a runaway kid who didn't like his home and who was like the classic runaway who actually has a kind of crappy life and like legitimately is looking for a better life and will find it, etc., etc. He was playing a person who like was an actual kid, like a kid who runs away from home without who does want to get away from home, but not necessarily because it's actually a bad home, just because he wants to be away from it.
Yeah, and he doesn't realize what he's getting into.
Yeah, so he was a kind of complicated child and a fairly realistic one as far as it goes.
So he gets down there, he, starts talking with some other people that are there, including some, young women who are essentially joining the Night Sisters, some of the non-Force sensitive males who are generally older than he is and are, getting away to get away because they feel like they need their freedom, that sort of stuff. And there's also, the thing that he's the first one to see this place, which actually has, like defense towers set up with like turbo lasers and such. And it's an armed camp that's also kind of interblended with, or intermingled with, the traditional Dathomiri, like hide tents and that sort of stuff. It's a very complex area with, stormtroopers next to, people in leathers and that sort of thing. And he just essentially sits down and gets into that. Now, meanwhile, up in the mountains, as the sun rises, our intrepid heroes are not quite there yet.
Oh, well, before the sun rises, we had a battle.
Oh, right. Sorry, the other thing which he did is he did mention that some people were probably going to be coming after him. Which, of course, meant you guys. And so they sent out, a stormtrooper patrol to go ahead and check on such things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys did have a battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
A fairly iconic early one.
Yeah.
And one that actually was super duper important in how it ended.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I remember, because what was hilarious is I tried playing the Jedi diplomat, and it failed miserably.
Yeah.
Which, a cool scene is one of the people who goes dark pretty quickly.
Well, quickly is an overstatement, but...
Well, yeah. Well,
he takes his time on the darkness. But...
Yeah. But, I mean, he sees, like... part of it is because when he's trying to do the right thing, shit like this happens.
Yeah. So let's tell this little story.
Yeah.
The story about the stormtroopers.
Yes.
Oh god. We still had Maine in our party then.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
And Maine was just, having been born in a bad part of town, was just like, look, we need to ambush these guys. I'm like, no, we can just talk our way out of it.
I mean, isn't that supposed to be your thing, Maine? How you do things, you're in a guy and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, yeah, normally I would say yes, but this is not one of those times, because those are stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And you just go, oh, we're Jedi, it won't be a big deal. Look, I'll show you. I'm not even the talky guy one, and I'm going to walk up and I'm going to defuse the situation. For the record, they're essentially in a small canyon, which goes ahead and boxes people in, where the stormtroopers are. And you guys are essentially able to make an ambush. I had, set up the engagement zone such that it would be possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so instead of the ambush, you walk forward into the canyon.
I walk forward into the canyon. Everybody else sets up in the canyon, by the way.
Yeah.
So they're ready for the ambush, because they're like, oh, that's just him. That's just a cool being a dumbass. We're just going to get ready for an ambush.
Pretty much.
So I get a couple of words. They're going to try to take me in. I try to defuse it a little bit. I'm not getting shot at until they realize that there's people circling them in the canyon.
Yeah, they actually did make their spot check, essentially.
Yeah.
They noticed that there was an ambush being set up. They figured I was a distraction, so they start shooting at me.
Yeah.
About the best that you got out of that is they did start on stun setting.
Well, to be fair, I think even before they started shooting at him, the thing was, like, they pointed their guns at him. It wasn't entirely clear whether they were going to, like, try and capture him or just straight up shoot him. But at that point, everyone's just like, oh shit, they're gonna kill him! Open fire!
Oh boy, right. So, those of you who are not as deep into Star Wars as me might not realize exactly how good Stormtrooper armor is. In game terms, it pulls off a full D, and that's a full die, because you just use D6s, so a dice code is however many D6s something does. They carry around a blaster rifle that does a full 5D worth of damage, with, by the way, an average human strength being 2D. And that's what you use to soak damage, and anything that's relatively near human is going to be based on that. I think that most people had about 3D worth of strength. Midori was camping out at a 4.
I had 2.
Cool. You had a 2D plus 1 at that time. Yeah. Yeah, a cool was definitely not in the tanky end of the spectrum. In fact, most of the party wasn't. So, weapons fire goes back and forth. Our poor little Jedi are actually shooting much weaker weapons, and they have much less armor than these stormtroopers. Now, granted, there was only like 1 or 2 more stormtroopers than there were of you guys, and you guys were force sensitives, which counts for a lot.
It counts for enough to save our asses.
But this was the point when you guys didn't realize for how much it counted, and hadn't really thought about the expanded critical rules that I had put onto this, which broke the Force completely, though it was in your favor, which was kind of the point, because you guys were Jedi.
Yeah.
Instead, you guys went, holy shit, fire back! And so they get into this gunfight with the stormtroopers, and the guys who are making their ambush positions are actually in a relatively good position compared to the stormtroopers. Akul is not, but that's only to be expected. So Akul just, takes a shot straight to the chest to start, dives out of the way of the follow-up fire, and he's in bad shape. And when you take damage in D6, that actually does damage to your ability to do things. For each level of wounds, you essentially take a 1d penalty.
Yeah.
So a cool has already become somewhat less effective in combat. And I think at that point you decided that I'm going to hide behind this rock and use battle meditation. Or your half version of it.
Yeah. Well, it was a specialty that hadn't blown into full battle meditation. So, yeah. I essentially did it. I went behind a rock. I pulled out my light foil to kind of help deflect blaster fire if I could, but...
Mm-hmm. Essentially it was like, screw this, guys. I'm not getting into this firefight.
Well, the thing is, it's like, if you took a target on a rifle range, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you put targets on either side of the cubicle you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I was the target downrange. The other people firing at them were the ones on the back of their cubicles. They were gonna fire downrange. So.
To start. Actually, even though these guys are not really stormtroopers and had somewhat lower stats than just a basic stormtrooper, they, it was one of those things that, because they had made their spot, a couple of them started firing up. They did the right thing.
And this leads to the kind of hilarious situation where the three people who would end up lasting the longest in the campaign, who'd be the biggest players in the campaign, in this initial fight, one of them was in the enemy camp, unguarded because he'd basically joined their side.
Yep.
One of them tried to negotiate and was immediately shot and now is hiding behind a rock with light foil.
Yeah.
And the third one, almost immediately in combat, got shot in the chest and then started rolling around on the ground trying to take off his armor because it had turned superheated after being hit with plasma.
Right.
So everyone who'd end up surviving, who'd end up lasting the campaign long term, was basically put out of the fight in the first couple rounds.
Yeah. It was funny as hell. Technically speaking, you still could have kept on going there, Duhad, but you were playing your character.
I play my character as a person who gets shot and then hits the ground because they got shot.
Yeah. And to be fair, you did take some damage from that.
Oh yeah, no, he set my armor on fire.
Yeah. So what then happens is Mador is not a particularly good shot, but he's good with his fists. And with the rather large blade that he got his hands on as well. So he jumps down and starts, swinging and chopping. And unfortunately that didn't work too well because of the fact that, two of the party had essentially just been dropped. And, so they focus fire on him and give him trouble. Brian is, trying to do a whole sniping battle back and forth, that kind of thing. And they do drop a couple of guys, but then Brian gets dropped as well, because he was in the same boat as Akul was with respect to his strength, which is your ability to tank damage. Which leaves us pretty much with Maine, who actually acted like a certified badass for a while.
Oh, yeah.
He went, remind me exactly, what are these critical rules that you were talking about with the Force? And I go, you get to use all the 6s as rerolls when it comes to the Force. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm gonna, focus on myself and supercharge myself with the Force. And I go, thank you. So he goes down and starts using the multi-action rules, but he's, supercharging himself with the Force. And Akul is still giving him an extra little bonus on this. So he just, comes and pops 2 stormtroopers. And then he goes, okay, I think that's enough for this round because otherwise problems are going to happen. That was about at the time that I seem to remember that a stormtrooper came around the rock and whacked you with a stun bolt.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Matrix Stormtrooper is what we ended up naming him.
Yeah. No, actually, he was a different one. Because
really?
That guy got blasted by Maine in the next fight. So anyway, so the stormtroopers, have another little exchange of fire. Maine is still being his certified badass self. He essentially goes ahead, takes his pistol, shoots behind him, pops the guy who got you, and then turns back to that last stormtrooper, Mr. Matrix Stormtrooper, and fires at him. And it was an exceptionally good attack roll. Like, ridiculously good. And the funny thing was, he didn't even get any bonuses for it being the Force thing outside of just a higher die code. It was just the exploder that kept on going 6, 6, 6, 6. And then Matrix Stormtrooper, rolls his dodge against it. The reason why we call him Matrix Stormtrooper is because he kept on getting the 6s himself, to the point where he blew Maine's player's shot out of the water. And so he essentially just flipped up into the air, shot the gun out of Maine's hands, because it was just too good not to. And then he starts charging in, and one of the things about Stormtrooper armor is it's sometimes been shown to have like this little pop blade vibro knuckle thing that goes on, and he charges in and punches Maine with it and starts just kicking the shit out of him.
It was essentially Assassin's Creed. Like he leaps over the attack, then dives Maine with a wrist blade.
Yeah. After shooting the gun out of his hand, mind you.
Yeah.
So, boom, boom, and then realizes, holy shit, I think that Abyssin that we just shot, because remember, he heals, which, by the way, was essentially his catchphrase, I heal.
Yes.
He's starting to get back up. And with the two of these guys, because, Maine is still mostly up there, he decides to book it out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone immediately went, oh, that guy's got to come back. Because this guy was just a mook, but that one roll turned him into the Matrix Stormtrooper. I still have notes for that guy, actually.
We never killed him.
No, you did not.
He did come back at one point, but we still didn't manage to kill him.
No, you did not. Because Matrix Stormtrooper was awesome like that. I eventually decided that he had to be a Force sensitive to be doing that kind of crap.
Yeah. This is actually where Brian and I decided we're gonna get some armor.
This is the point where where you can start to see the divide between how the various players' brains worked. Because
not to mention, this is the point where everyone realized exactly how important armor was in this system.
Oh, no, certainly. I mean more along the lines of what happened after the first battle of the game, the first lethal battle of the game. Because what essentially happened was, immediately after the first battle, everyone started reacting differently. Midor, because he was basically Midor's player, because he was basically playing a guy who was he was fairly experienced role player, but he was also playing someone who was didn't really give a crap about armor, didn't really give a crap about looting and stuff. He could heal through just about anything. He was basically Wolverine. So he's whatever, I'm just gonna kind of go around and rest up after the battle. And Akul and Brian are immediately we're gonna start stripping these bodies.
Because we need armor. Also, that was another case of Daddy's credit card, or rather, the family business's supplies, because he had made the argument that because he worked for a Bacta shipping company, that he'd have ready access to Bacta. So he starts slapping Bacta patches on everyone, injecting them with Bacta.
I had fun with the injections.
Good at it. Huh?
I had fun with the injections. That was what I did.
You're not particularly good at them, so it kept on hurting people to do it with.
Well, okay, are you familiar? If you've seen the new Star Trek films, there's a scene where Kirk is running around the ship and his face is swelling because he's had the vaccine.
I remember, yes.
And he's like, "Oh, I got a fix for that." That was cool.
Yes.
But so there was the argument for him having lots of Bacta. It was more of a running joke than anything else, but it came in useful here.
Yes.
But yeah.
The other thing was, a large part of the reason why I keep on kicking the shit out of your characters is because I knew I could come back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Maine and I, all they were looting. We were trying to save the life of the one surviving stormtrooper. Maine because he wanted to try and get information in Washington because he was.
Oh my god, this is a person.
It's oh god, he's dying. We gotta save this person. He's a human being. Which no one really seemed to get why that was an issue. It was fuck, who
it's
cares?
A stormtrooper. Who cares about stormtroopers?
Dude, loot him or beat him for information. That's what he's useful for. But person bleeding out in pain.
And to be fair, that's actually the Jedi way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I just the way me using the Jedi way just fucking failed, so I wasn't too happy about it.
I need the armor way.
But the funny thing is, the two players who were no, that's don't be stupid. Think about this like a role player. Think your actions through. Damn it, we can't waste our medical supplies. Help us pull off these helmets. We're gonna hold off these things. Which is really funny. And I'll let Morath explain why that's funny.
Well, let me explain a little bit about Stormtrooper armor real quick. Stormtrooper armor, as you see, the Empire thought that it's a great idea if we can keep track of our soldiers. So each of them had a built-in comm link in the helmet.
Well, more to the point, it's good for your soldiers to be able to talk with each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we're walking around, and keep in mind, Akul can't even use the fucking helmet. I don't know why I picked it up.
We literally couldn't even use the damn things, most of us.
Yeah.
No one was wearing them, but we were carrying the helmet. They were carrying the helmets anyway.
Brian was.
Yeah.
Because Brian ended up carrying the big pile of helmets.
Yeah.
Because the other thing was, Stormtrooper armor is actually valuable in universe. Yeah. And he was thinking in old school D&D terms. Grab all the stuff, sell it off somewhere else. I mean, we could make a quick stop at the Errant Venture and sell off all this stuff. It's got to be worth something, right? Yeah. In fact, he was right. It is worth something.
Yeah. It was a good idea, except for one key feature, which Akul is going to explain, Morath is going to explain.
So, roughly when your patrols don't report in, you can track down these comm links in their helmets.
Especially if the people stealing the helmets never bother to turn the comm links off. So that
or in fact,
disable them.
Yeah. So of course.
So constantly playing everything that we're saying around them the entire time we're walking.
Well, no, because you
I
had
remember the looks on your faces.
It wasn't that it was constantly transmitting what we were saying. It was constantly transmitting where we were. Because remember, you had to actually activate the comm link. It was like an internal one.
No, I think we actually established at least one
it was because of the fact that Brian was wearing the one that essentially everything he was saying was going back to
right.
Oh, right. So
yeah, the comm station techs were basically just sitting there listening to this guy saying, "Whatever, we just killed the guys. We can take your stuff and sell it on the black market. Back to the Jedi Academy."
I never actually thought about that in my mind, but you have to imagine that these guys were essentially going, and these guys are supposed to be the good guys?
So of course, this transport just comes out of nowhere and trains their guns on Akul, who's just sitting there quivering in his boots, and Brian is wearing helmets and is carrying a big bag of their dead people's armor.
There too.
Yeah, basically the three people were all like, "We're gonna carry the armor. It's fine, whatever."
Well, I didn't think
Maine
Maine was in on that one.
Breastplate as well.
Yeah. The point is, like, the people who decided to take the armor with them were like all carrying it together, and when the gunship came in, it came in on them.
Yeah.
And the two people who were basically chided for not playing well, like the two people were like, "Yeah, fuck it, whatever. We're not gonna take the armor. We're just it's not in character for us to take the armor." We were hanging a little bit back, trying to carry this wounded stormtrooper.
And you dove into the trees.
We dove into the trees and didn't get caught.
And actually, the funny thing is, the reason that you guys didn't get caught, by the by, was because they had stripped that stormtrooper of his armor and said that, he won't need it anymore. And it would be easier to keep control of him if he didn't have the armor on it.
So it was like, we had to heal him. We had to monitor his injuries and stuff. So it was like, you can't do that with a breastplate on.
Yeah, so his armor was in Brian's sack.
Yeah.
And so, what you've got is some dude who just has a helmet and a couple of scraps of armor. And then you've got a dude that just has a rucksack full of bodies worth of this stuff. And, one of the Night Sisters comes out, Tamith Kai, and decides that we're being drafted.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You're force sensitives, and they're pretty sure that they can brainwash you.
Yeah, and
not to mention you're showing dark-sided tendencies.
It's sort of like, imagine this in the context of the Star Wars universe. It's like, so you're Jedi, yep, and the three of you got held up and captured because you were basically stripping the bodies of the dead. Yep. I can offer you a position,
To be fair,
to the character's credit, they said, "Fuck you," and to Tamith Kai's credit, she roasted them with Sith lightning.
I just remember, Tamith Kai and Akul had an interesting relationship.
Just imagining the amount of electricity and whips that were involved with that. The way that you said that just makes me smile.
No. Okay, so here's the great part. I remember Tamith Kai holding me up and, Akul was the oldest of the group at this point.
Yeah.
So the first thing she does, she starts choking him physically. And Akul makes the joke, "Listen, lady, I'm not into breath play." At which point she starts electrocuting him. And this sort of abusey relationship continued onto Thyphera, which we'll get to later.
Yes.
But it got to the point where she remembered his name.
It's like
Which-
you.
She
The
remembered my
smartass.
character's name.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
So, at this point, Brian and I are in the middle of this cargo hold, and we're just like, they come in, Akul gets electrocuted and beaten or whatever. Because he sparks off.
They're going ahead and essentially encouraging you to do dark-sided actions.
Yeah. And
through the use of the dark side.
yeah, and there's, we meet up with Rusa again.
Mm-hmm.
And
who's having a much easier time of it than you guys are.
Yeah.
I think he even said something to the point of essentially like, you do realize that it's way easy that it's like way easier just to not mouth out to the command and just do it. I mean, why are you torturing yourselves? This seems really dumb.
And then I think Akul says something about the implications of morality and all that kind of stuff, and he just goes, "You idiot."
Like, that's dumb.
No. What I think Akul eventually got Rosa by saying, "Just because they're patting you on the head, does it make it any different than the slavery you encountered on Earth, on Dathomir?"
On Earth.
Is willing slavery any different than slavery in general?
Actually, if you look at how it went, that was a point that he did make, but that's not actually when Rosa turned back on it.
No.
Yeah.
What I do remember is
Rosa wasn't really stirred by pretty words. He was more of a practical person.
Yeah.
What I do remember is what came the Nine Sisters got attacked by the War Council that Akul helped start.
Oh, that hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's still over a little bit. Don't forget there was the whole ambush first.
Yes.
Sabotage.
Well, no, because I remember we got out during the battle.
Yeah, and that was a little bit later on.
That's later on, dude.
Yeah. But, there's a lot that happened while I was in captivity. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's get back to the free members of the party who aren't getting beaten, electrocuted, and choked.
Yeah.
Hey, it was a pretty cushy gig.
So at this point, they've gotten captured and they're being tortured and whatnot. Yeah. So the surviving party members who are still free.
All two of them.
It is we have probably the best fighter in the group free. Mm-hmm. But for this mission where it's two people trying to rescue people from a group of heavily armed individuals, we have the green as grass kid who's basically completely incapable of lying, committing actions that are even more vaguely morally questionable. He's a shitty liar. And Savage World Wolverine.
Yeah.
And we're trying to...
Whose honest plan in character was, let's go in and punch them.
Yes. And this was the group that had to pull off the high-stakes sabotage mission to try and free the rest of the group.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And this is also the point where Washington, for the very first time, started getting a taste of command and hated it. Medora's essentially just like, well... You are slightly more competent at this than I am. So we're like, okay, we need a plan.
I think his exact wording was, well, you're the smart one. What do you got? And I seem to remember watching, wait, I'm the smart one?
Yeah. So the plan we eventually came up with was essentially we were going to sneak into the camp by just walking in and trying to just sidle our way up to something explosive and plant a bomb, plant a grenade and try and set up explosives in various ammunition crates
Yep.
to create a distraction so we could then free our friends. This almost worked.
The fact of the matter was, it actually did have some real potential of working because of the fact that, they had mostly unguarded sides to the valley that, they just couldn't secure entirely. And, of course, it's an armed camp. There's got to be weapons storage there somehow.
Yeah, and the thing is, essentially, the Academy had, this wasn't part of the plan, but, it was actually something that worked in our favor, which was that the Academy was used to, kids coming in and, being recruited, and while they knew that there were people out there who were trying to stop them, they just captured those people. They just caught the group that was, causing them problems.
Yeah, that was one thing that Rosa did not screw you guys over on. He never said how many of the people there were. And in fact, I think it was that he pointed at Brian and said he was the one who tried to stop me.
Yeah.
So they thought they had caught him all.
Yeah. So, we actually managed to walk around the camp pretty much at our leisure, just, very quietly, whistling and, sneaking over to the ammunition dumps and just, setting down a grenade with, a timer on it. And then just,
grabbing all sorts of weapons.
Yeah, it's just, I think we actually got some dirty looks from some of the other players who wanted us to save the better guns so we could steal them, but, we were just no.
Yeah, you did get your hands on some pretty good stuff, though. I seem to remember, rocket launchers, thermal detonators.
Yeah, we weren't actually, intending to steal those. We were basically just dropping bombs wherever we could, and, the only things we took at that time were just more thermal detonators to make more explosives. And we would
I think also you did plan out that you were going to leave one of the ammo dumps unguarded, so that, you could grab stuff and cause more chaos.
Yeah, I think that was Medor's plan, because, he, as much as he was playing someone who was not, a tactician or anything, he at least was savvy.
He understood the value of weapons.
Yes, he was at least savvy enough to say, no, we should really do that. But, at any rate, we almost succeeded up until the point where we were trying to, just, I forget why we were trying to get at a guard post. But we decided
you knew that the War Council was coming and that guard post could be a problem for them, because they were pretty much going to have to attack directly.
Right, so basically we go over to the guard post and we're just holy crap, guys, there's some crazy shit going on the other side of the camp. And they're what's that, really? And I was oh my god, it's super bad. And basically because I wasn't actually, because I was the one guy who didn't really know shit about, the Star Wars EU, I was just I'll use whatever EU terms I know. And as it turns out, one of the terms I used was something that apparently is, not at all, Imperial in the slightest.
Yeah, I think you actually used rebellion slang.
It was by the Force or some shit like that.
Oh yeah, that was it. I
was whatever, fuck it. They said it in the movies, therefore it's part of the canon or something. And everyone was just no! And the guards are the fuck did you just say?
Yeah, it was great because it was just his rebellion era Jedi type thing, and the looks on the players, their faces go white, much like the thing with the lights turning off, and big old grin goes across my face.
And for non-Star Wars geeks, I guess this is the equivalent of essentially being an American spy in Germany and saying you gotta go over there, you crazy Huns.
Well, it was very much like in Inglourious Bastards with the whole 3 versus 3 thing.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments, and suddenly, alarm.
Yeah, just boom. They're just wait. And
didn't you draw and actually drop them?
Yeah, we were just eventually we were oh, fuck it.
Yeah, because they weren't the ones who set off the alarm. You guys shot them, and it was the other guard tower that saw the weapons fire going on.
Yeah, we started to stun them, and at that point, we actually started firing weapons, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah,
and then
pretty
the
much.
Bombs went off.
And that's when the sun came up.
Yeah.
So not only have they gotten into this firefight. Explosions are going off in the camp. Suddenly, there's a thundering noise as a bunch of Rancors with Force-sensitive women riding them are charging towards the camp. Luckily for them, they actually were able to plant the explosives on the turbo laser towers.
Yeah.
Unluckily, this is about the time that the Imperial Assault Shuttle comes flying down out of space to go ahead and pick up the new recruits.
And it's full of new recruits. The bases. Yeah. There's this point during this where I finally wake up.
Being electrocuted and whipped and all that shit.
Yeah, for the record, folks, he kept on asking me, can I make a strength roll to wake up? And I went, yes, and he kept on failing it.
Well, because keep in mind that this was not the first time I had been electrocuted or beaten in this play session either. So, I ended up waking up. I ended up actually like going out and having a cigarette break during this, from what I remember. Coming back and finally making the roll.
As everything was exploding.
As everything was exploding, and Brian was just like, finally, whatever, just like, you're with us, cowboy? I remember there being, like, we were in the ship being loaded up with a bunch of the new recruits. And I remember breaking out, and we ended up getting into, like, a fist fight with somebody, to the point where I had to pull somebody off the ship with me when I did it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I used a theatrical force point and essentially dove out the back of a flying transport with a bunch of people on it, firing at me, while carrying a beaten and bruised body with me. Oh, that's right, because Brian had injured himself.
That's right, yeah, he didn't end up too well in that fist fight.
Yeah. He rolled a complication. So
it was a complication on a failure, no less.
Yeah. So we ended up I ended up dragging his carcass off, jumping out, and now he's having to roll the strength check.
Yeah.
He was not happy about that.
No. That's what happens when you neglect strength in Star Wars D6. It is kind of one of those god stats.
Yeah. So we end up... Oh god, I don't remember what happened after that, because essentially what happened was I ended up picking up a blaster from somebody and started fighting as well.
Yeah. I also seem to remember this was the time when Rosa's personal Rancor got splattered.
Yes, he had a personal Rancor, and it got super killed.
Yeah, it took a missile to the chest.
Yeah.
And actually, I think Mara Jade was actually riding it at the time, and she leaps off the Rancor, tries to force push it away, but her dice just weren't with her that day, and it goes and kills the Rancor. And that was kind of what set Rosa over the edge, the fact that they were willing to fire at the Rancors.
It wasn't Picard's speech.
It wasn't it wasn't any of the fact that they're the bad guys, it wasn't the torture, it was the fact that they were willing to kill the Rancors, which was a big no-no in his culture.
Yeah. Again, remember, this is a kid. He isn't swayed by persuasive arguments about morality or the rightness of man. He's pissed off because they were willing to shoot puppies.
Yeah.
Giants.
Actually, we're very lucky that he didn't decide to go ahead and say that it was Mara Jade's fault for riding his Rancor.
Yeah.
Though, frankly, I think a part of that was the fact that, the Rancor actually does have to say, yes, this is a good thing as well.
I think there's also a little bit of, like, as much as he was really good at playing his character, like, to the point of actually be, like, where it would be, like, difficult for him, like, where it would actually be, like, more difficult, more challenging for him to play based on his actions, he was never so suicidally, challenge craved that he'd actually make it, like, legitimately hard for the really hard for the GM by, like,
he would work with the GM.
I hate the person we're supposed to be working for now because of this, and I will refuse to leave planet because of that.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't his style.
Yeah, no. Especially because, the Jedi Academy could give him the same thing that he wanted.
Yeah.
Without the torture. Well, mostly. Mara Jade.
Yeah. But yes.
Anyway.
So
yeah, big fight went down.
Yeah.
And Brian actually finally makes his roll. As, the assault shuttle's streaming away, the good witches are going ahead and rampaging through the area, everything's won, but the bad guys are getting away, and he goes, oh no.
Hold on, for context here, let's get a little bit of context here, because I think it's important for, his sake, that we do say that this was not, what happened next was not him just going, let's do something crazy. By this point, we've talked about Akul being tortured, and Akul getting, beaten up and captured and all that stuff. Don't forget that everything that happened to Akul also happened to Brian, and a lot of what happened to Brian was the fault of other people mouthing off to the bad guys, and then the bad guys torturing everyone because of it.
Not to mention, I should also note for Brian, when he mouthed off to the bad guys, because he did some, he was doing it because he was actually spouting Jedi philosophy. He wasn't saying, I'm not into breath play or anything like that. He was saying, you will never take me over to the dark side.
Yeah. So he was fairly pissed about that. And then, in addition to that, after, again, being a very old school role player, the type of guy who is really good at kind of building characters that can, do all these things, for the entire session, the character that he had carefully, perfectly spec'd out to be this crazy force cannon that could just, wipe the floor in battle with the Force, got his ass kicked over and over again, and then even when it came to escaping, he's like, okay, I'm gonna jump off the thing. It's like, no, your stats are too shitty, we don't want to risk it, I'm gonna lob you, Akul's gonna throw you out of the ship that you're in and knock you unconscious as you fall to the ground.
Well, no, he was already unconscious. I dragged him out the back of it.
No, he wasn't. He was still conscious. He was just, not able to get out necessarily on his own. So you were like, I'm going to throw him out to be safe.
His agility was a 3, and he had taken 3 wound levels, so he was essentially at 0. He wasn't actually able to.
Oh, so he wasn't able to move, and I was... Okay.
Well, yeah, technically speaking, I think I had been nice about that and said that he could use the Force to do it and everything, but you went, yeah, that's way too risky. I can still move just fine. I'm just going to, drag him out.
Yeah, a cool player's always been, Morath has always been a very pragmatic player. That's one of his big styles. And when given this situation, he was like, I'm gonna throw him out. I'm not gonna risk losing a party member over this. But for Brian, once again, he was getting the shortest end of the shittiest stick, because of other people doing things for him. So now he's on the ground. The fighting is over. He's accomplished nothing, but he's got one ace up his sleeve, and that is that he is still a friggin' force cannon. And the person who tortured him is getting away on that fucking shuttle.
Yep.
So now you can now explain.
Yeah. So his highest stat was his alter, which is essentially his telekinesis. And he goes, okay, yeah, that's it. I'm, dragging them out of the sky, and I go, yeah. Honestly, I don't think that your alter stat is high enough, especially with, the damage that you've taken and everything. You've been given a little bit of bacta, but it's still not going to be enough. And he goes, oh, no, I'm not going to try and drag it out of the sky. And I go, wait, what? He goes, well, I've got telekinesis, right? And I go, yeah, you do. Well, there are pilots up there. And I go, okay, yeah, there are. And there's actually another shuttle getting away, too. The assault shuttle has the big bad that tortured him. The other one has, just more normal people. And he goes, okay, so I'm going to go after the more normal shuttle because it's farther away. And he goes, I'm going to use alter and I'm going to grab the pilot's chairs and smash them together. And I go, okay, man, that is kind of a dark-sided action. And he goes, fuck it, I really don't care. You've said that you're not going to take our characters away for dark side actions. I go, yeah, because I think that system's pretty stupid. For the record, in normal D6, once you hit, I think it's 10 dark side points, you are irrevocably an NPC and yada yada. I threw that out the window, created something different. Anyway, I go, okay, go for it, man, roll it. And he rolls it.
Before he did that, he also actually was like, wait a second, there's I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right, but I've got force points.
Yeah, you're just be careful because there's a chance you won't be able to do it. And he's like, fuck it. You know what? This is going to be something that I am going to do. I will burn a dark side point to fucking do this because this is going to happen.
Yeah.
He also did it on my battle meditation.
Yeah.
Well,
So he was
battle meditation was on. He drew on the dark side, which is, actually a mechanic, and he spent a force point just to make sure that he had enough.
This was going all out to do this thing.
Yeah, so I think I said, you are going to get 3 dark side points from this. And he goes, gonna happen. And I went, okay, and tell you what, you can make, both attempts on them. Doesn't much matter to me, because, just 3 dark side points is more than enough. I mean, technically this shit should have been 6 or so.
Like, this is a thing that would, in normal D6, lose to your character instantly, but because
you'd also have to make the roll to see if you didn't just lose it. Because 1 dark-sided point, and this is part of the reason I don't like the vanilla rules for it, can lose your character if you roll badly. Anyway, so he goes ahead. I say, okay, make a sense roll to make sure that you're actually aiming, because he can't see. And he goes, okay, I got that. And he made a good sense roll. And make an alter roll to do it. And he kills the alter roll. And he just crushes the 2 pilot chairs together. The pilots just go, boom, falls out of the sky, explodes. He goes, okay, I'm going on that one too. I go, all right, man, go for it. You make a sense roll. It's not as good this time. And I go, okay, you can tell that there is only 1 pilot up there, so it won't be as hard to make the alter roll. What I don't tell him at this point is, of course, 1, that is kind of a big bet. They do kind of have to get away. And 2, it wasn't high enough for the targeting threshold that I had put for it. And again, he kills the alter roll. And he says, I'm going to focus it just on the 1 seat. So, I'll be sure to be able to manifest enough force. I go, okay, fine. Because I can now see how that's going to go. And I go, okay, sense is low enough. I don't have to drop another person to a seat. Okay. So he makes his rolls, and I go, the seat crumples up into this tiny little ball, but the shuttle flies away. And he goes, what? And I go, yeah, your sense roll wasn't high enough. You missed. You chose the wrong seat. And, he goes, damn it. But he's happy enough that he's actually able to, just destroy a shuttle and bring it down to ground and everything.
Yeah.
And I go, and here's your 3 dark side points.
He's like, I don't give a shit. Like, he had redeemed himself in his own eyes, and that was what had mattered to him. Like, he was happy.
And for the record, I really didn't mind my characters going dark-sided. It was part of the reason for this. It's just, the universe will see you as dark-sided.
Yeah, and this was an important point. Like, at this point, I think everyone in the party, like, even up to this point, everyone in the party was kind of okay with that. Like, everyone was sort of like, yeah, he did something horrifically dark-sided. And a lot of the characters, especially Washington at this point, we were like, oh my god, what the hell did you do? That was, like, the most evil thing ever. But most of the players were sort of like, this would end up being, like, Washington's probably the character most affected by in-character, but, like, I played with Brian's player before, and this was not exactly something totally new, and I was like, whatever. People were not too, outraged about that then, but the characters were starting to go, like, when those lines in the sand were being drawn earlier, they got reinforced here.
Yes.
Yeah, and Maine actually threatened to kill him.
Yeah. Maine's player was actually, like, angry. Like, was legitimately like, dude, that's not what heroes do.
Yeah, and he did say it in character, too. And because it was in front of a large group, he actually got a dark side point for that, too.
Yeah, you got a dark side point for saying if you ever do anything like that again, I'm going to shoot you with this here blaster rifle.
Yeah, and he meant it. Like, Maine's player is 100% the type of person who plays to be a hero. He does not, like, even in games and stuff, he doesn't like civilian deaths. He doesn't like doing things that are morally outrageous. It's like, if you can be the hero. And so, like, those lines in the sand were getting drawn hard along certain characters.
Yeah.
I remember Cool backing him up on that one.
Right, because the 2 of you were, the party leaders, you started going, okay, so we got to reinforce each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and it made it, I'm not sure if it made Brian even more bitter because I was the one, I was also scolding him at the time.
Yeah.
Because I had just pulled his ass out of the back of a shuttle.
Yeah, I think
it probably did not help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he particularly liked being threatened, especially. It was like getting a death threat against his character and then having, like, the dude who threw him out of the back of a shuttle and fucked him up, backing up the death threater and being like, really?
Yeah.
Like, you're backing up the guy who threatened to shoot me over
yeah.
the whole like.
Yeah,
being
that
a
was
dick
also
thing?
your first dark side point, wasn't it, Morath? Because you did publicly reinforce him.
No, my first dark side point came from Thyfera.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for very good reasons.
But yeah, like the thing was like, the party as a group of players was still more or less, pretty solid at that point. But like, yeah, the characters were like starting to go like, murder.
And this is a bunch of Jedi.
I think the only people who were like not threatening to kill one another, because like Brian was like, "You come at me, I'm coming at you." Like the only people who were like at this point not threatening to kill one another were like Mador, who, as far as he was concerned, like killing people. Like, well, that was a kind of brutal way of killing people. It was like, whatever, you're killing people. I don't see anything wrong with that. And like Rosa was just sort of like, okay, that was bad, I guess. I don't have a context for that. And Washington, who was like, I just want to go and cry in the corner now.
Oh boy.
But yeah, so that would all change over time. But
yes,
anyway.
Yes, it would. So yeah, and actually on relatively good terms with what is essentially the Planetary Authority, our heroes left Dathomir to head back to the Jedi Academy on the newly named Jade Falcon, or the Lost Basket, to hear Mador tell it.
Well, the last times we'd leave a planet without some sort of official reprimand.
Yeah.
Okay, with an open invitation to return.
An hour and a half now.
Yeah, I think we're at a pretty good stopping point. We got through important planet. Next time we will talk about the return to the Jedi Academy, where things actually really start. Like all those characters that we introduced last time, that we spent basically like an hour just talking about these NPCs that didn't end up being
quite
important
literally
in that talk. Yeah. Next session, like next time, we will talk about the second trip to the Jedi Academy, where those characters actually started really coming into their own and started, being people that we needed to set up. We'll also talk about how those lines in the sand began to like expand and become, more pronounced. And hopefully, if we have time, we'll get on to at least the trip to the second major planet, where things went friggin' crazy.
Oh boy, did they ever.
So, on that note, we will hopefully see you guys next week.
All right.
Yeah.
Doodles.